People who have stopped all contact with your parents or family, why? I'm 21 and have 2-week-old twin girls. My sister is 28 and has had 14 miscarriages, not counting 2 babies born super early that didn't make it. She gets pregnant pretty easily, but she usually loses the babies within the first trimester. She lost one in second trimester and made it to the third trimester 3 times. One resulted in my 4-year-old niece that she has now, and the other 2 babies the doctors refused to save. I'm not against having kids, but I definitely wanted to wait until I graduated with my degree and was married to my so. From the start, my mom says I should give my babies to my sister since she deserves it more than I do. Sister, who was never really an N before this incident, completely agrees. I tell them hell no, and mom calls me a selfish bitch. I go LC with the both of them, and all throughout my pregnancy, my sister is texting me begging me to give just one baby up, since I have one to spare, of course. Ignore all of her messages. The last time I saw her was when I was about 23 weeks pregnant and we went out to lunch. She started blabbing about keeping my babies again, so I paid for my meal and left and went NC. I don't use Facebook much, but a couple of days ago, I logged on to look through my SO's photos to find his baby photos. He looks so much like our daughters. Well, I got about 100 threatening messages from family and friends about how I stole my sister's babies and ruined her life. I'm confused as hell and looking through my sister's page, and she has a fucking nursery for my babies. I find a bunch of posts about how generous I am for going through the pregnancy and giving my sister the babies. I don't know if people think they're biologically hers and I was a surrogate, or if I'm just giving her my kids, but the crazy bitch told everyone I was giving her the babies. She has MY pictures of them in the NICU, saying how she can't wait to bring them home. I can't even wrap my mind around this. She even changed their names, and these posts go back months. She seriously needs therapy. Anyway, if she tries to go near me or my kids, I'm getting a restraining order. This is ridiculous. My father married his mistress, who already had a son, and now they have a baby daughter. My mom remarried my stepdad, and they had my half-sister. After all that, I became a secondary character in their life, and they looked forward to ship me off to the other home so they could pretend that I didn't exist and play happy family. After a year, I became fed up and started sleeping over more and more at other houses, and went home. I would never interact with anyone. Both my parents took that as a rebellious phase and would fight with me all the time. I wasn't a bad kid or a troublemaker, but soon I was labeled as the black sheep of the family. Every interaction with my parents became a lecture about my attitude problem and how well the other kids behaved. I was just so fed up that I packed shit and disappeared for a few days. I took a bus and went missing in action for 4 days. Of course the police was called, and when I appeared again I hit another lecture. We got in a screaming match where they called me a disappointment, and I told them I hated them. I called my aunt crying, and she came to fetch me. In the car, I could hear how she was tearing my parents a new one. Neither of them tried to convince me of coming back home. We informed the respective authorities about my changed living condition, and my aunt is my current guardian. My parents' ways ruined our contact. Appearing only when it was convenient, sometimes giving me money, etc. Recently, they tried to build more contact up, but I was not interested. I won a story writing contest and didn't tell them, nor did I invite them to the celebration. And on the website where you can read my story, the thanks goes to my aunt for loving me unconditionally. I didn't invite my parents to my sweet 16 party. Basically, I have cut them out of my life. I am not interested in their lives or families or anything. Mom tried to meet up for my birthday, but we didn't. She got upset and called me crying, and I just didn't care. It was like listening to a TV character cry. It wasn't important. She isn't important to me anymore. Dad called me and said he was worried about me and how my reaction is not healthy, and again I didn't care. As far as I'm concerned, my aunt is my only parent. She encourages that I build up my relationship to my parents again, but doesn't force me. Anyway, yesterday, my parents pulled me out of school and invited me to eat at her old favorite place. Mom had tears in her eyes, and even Dad seemed hurt. They tried apologizing for their behavior and pleaded with me to come back, and I just said no and left. I still resent them for choosing a new life over me. But I don't know if I'm being a pretty idiot or what to do now. I don't want them in my life, but would I be making the right choice? I don't know. You know, when you are at a friend's house, when their parents don't particularly like you, and you feel tense all the time and you feel like you shouldn't be there? That was the feeling I constantly had at their houses. I know that my stepfather doesn't like me that much. My parents would both fight about who keeps me longer. But not in the sense I want to have her longer, but I took her last weekend, it's your turn. Also planning fun activities for the day after I leave. My father and his wife would often schedule visits to the parks or bigger trips specifically to the weeks my mother had me, and my mother and her husband would leave me alone at home so they could go out with the baby. Every chance they got, they would ship me off to my grandma's or my aunt's place with some excuse, and then do family stuff. Also, when you went through the houses, there were barely any pictures of me. They had big portraits of my siblings and them together, but almost none of mine. They shipped me off to my grandma's and grandpa's for a whole summer and only called twice. When there are family functions, I am often excludes. E.g., my dad had a family barbecue and didn't invite me. They forgot my birthday on more than one occasion, and when they remembered, they got me a 10 Starbucks gift card even when they know I don't like Starbucks. So no, they never straight up said it, but they didn't hide it either. Okay, some background: I was adopted when I was 5 months old. I have 2 very loving moms. And 5 amazing sisters also adopted. As far as I knew, my birth mom was some businesswoman who didn't want to raise me. One day in January, my older mom received a phone call from a woman claiming to be my birth mom asking if she could visit me. My younger mom figured why not, thinking she might just want to be a good person. So they set up a date to meet at a local park. We go there early to wait for them. They show up, she is very pregnant, and the guy next to her was in a suit. We meet, everything is fine, if a bit awkward, until she says, "Birth mom, so would you like to come live with us?" Me, no, I don't want to. I was impatient and wanted to play. And I ran off to play with my sister until I hear my younger mom yell at my birth mom. "Younger mom, you are not taking my daughter." "Birth mom, I'm her real mother, I'm taking her home." "Younger mom, you most certainly are not, she is our daughter." Birth mom, screaming, "I don't give 2 shits what you think, I am taking her." That's when she gets up and starts running to me, grabbing my hand and yanking it. That's when my older mom tackles her, former military and very muscled, pinning her to the ground easily. The husband called the police on my mom, yelling to let her go. A few minutes later, 2 officers show up after giving our statement. Birth mom claimed they had taken me and she was taking me home. They arrested both my older mom and my birth mother, and for 2 days, until after showing them my birth certificate and proof of adoption, they let my older mom go since she was defending me, and arrested my birth mother for attempted kidnapping and child endangerment. I heard from her for a couple of months afterwards in letters she sent. Then after that, nothing, never heard or saw her again. Not that I want to. I find out later that she moved to the US, and that is the last I heard of her. That was 3 years ago. When I was a kid, my mom was a pretty awful parent to me and my siblings. Resentful, sometimes a bit of a bully, never hugged any of us, and mainly told us how we ruined her life. You get the picture. I moved out at 17 to keep my sanity. I'm 28 now and never had much of a relationship with her after moving out, as she never once admitted that she had done some really fucked up shit to us. My sister is married and got 2 kids, my brother is divorced with 3 kids. I got a call from the hospital that my mom managed to drink her liver out of order and need a transplant. All of us siblings were found to be a match. My sister and brother, once they realized that cutting out a part of your liver is risk-free, backed out. I was told that I have something called situs inversus, meaning my organs are abnormally placed, and that it would make the risk of surgery higher for me. 4% risk of death within 2 weeks of surgery, and higher risk of other awful shit happening. And of course, a 100% guarantee that my mother will drink that liver away too. Now everyone, the doctor, my mom, my siblings, everyone, is telling me I should do it, because I don't have kids, so who cares if the risk is high? This pissed me off. My family never valued my lifestyle, as I decided not to do the life script. I bought a cabin in the wilderness in the north and work from home, so I rarely have to leave my lovely little hideaway. I make enough money to live the life I always dreamed of, but apparently that does not count since I don't want kids. And my mom, who never cared if I lived or died, suddenly thinks she deserves my liver because she gave birth to me. The fact that she then spent 17 years bullying me is irrelevant because family and kids are a gift from God. Fuck them all. The doctor said to me, well, it is an increased risk, but your mother needs a new liver and at least you don't risk leaving children behind. Fuck that. I was so stunned I forgot the entire Swedish language and just sat there. What did I just hear? And who will care for my pets if I die? MMM? And my mom. I gave you life, you should do the same for me. After all, I gave you my best years, raising you was no joke. Yeah. She also gave me 2 fractured ribs, and one time locked out of the house in the middle of winter, and I had to smash a window with my hand to get in. I can't believe I even tried, that I agreed to be tested as a donor, as if she would have magically changed. I'm leaving the city tonight, taking the night train north, and will hopefully be back in my cozy home tomorrow. When the doctor calls to hear my decision, I might not even pick up. I just wanted to write a short update, as so many of you have been amazingly supportive. I have spoken to the people involved, my mom, my siblings, and the medical staff, and told everyone that I won't donate a part of my liver to my alcoholic mother. The doctor at the hospital where my mother was treated initially when her liver crashed, simply said, I understand, but that also means that I must inform you that you need to prepare to say goodbye to her in a not very distant future. I might not particularly like my mother, but I don't wish death on anyone, so that sucks. But again, she drank her liver away. It took years of hard work to reach the place where she is now. She's been to several clinics, gotten all sorts of help. She would stay until they stopped, treat her abstinence with Oxyscan, and then check out and start it all over again. So much of the taxpayers' money has been spent and thrown away on her, and she refuses to take any responsibility at all. It's always the nurses or the doctor's fault that she drinks, they don't give me the right treatment. I think she would do the same to any donated liver. I told the doctor this. My sister said that she understood, and now that things have had time to calm down a bit, she even said that she thinks it's the right thing to do. My brother does not agree with my decision, and I told him that he can donate a nice slice of his own liver then, but then of course he tells me that he can't, because he got kids and it's too much of a risk for him to take. I, on the other hand, am obviously disposable. And my mother. I almost can't be bothered to type it out. I phoned her to tell her that she will not be getting my liver, and as expected, she went from jovial to resentful by the drop of a hat. Everything from I'm your mother, you only get one mother, to you must be there for family was thrown at me. She even referred to the fact that I once risked my life for my dog, when she went through the ice on a frozen lake, but you won't do this for your mom? No. No, I will not, actually. She'd said many rather awful things. I guess I can understand that she is upset and scared, but even I got a limit as to how much of that shit I'm willing to stand, so eventually, I just said that I am done and hung up. Not sure what to expect now, don't really care either. I'm glad that my sister came around, perhaps my brother will if given time. Maybe not. Either way, I'm happy to have made my decision clear. Now that it's done, I can get back to enjoying my life far from them all, in the comfort of my home and in the company of my awesome dogs. New first-time dad here to a healthy little princess born this past Thursday. Unfortunately, the joy my wife and I felt in this scenario was temporarily halted by my mother's wholly inappropriate behavior that I'm just not okay with. Some background: my mom has always been one of those people with a massive victim complex. People she knows go out to dinner and don't invite her? Must have been intentional. A decision is made without getting her input? Must have been done on purpose to spite her. You get the idea. This behavior manifested heavily 5 years ago when we got married and became a sore point for a long time. Once she found out we were expecting, again the negative behaviors came out. Tired of her leaving a stain on every moment that should be joyous, I finally had to sit down with her. I told her in no uncertain terms that I wasn't going to raise my daughter in a negative environment like this, that we want her to be around and involved, but her attitude needs to change. I was polite but firm about all of this. She resisted at first, resorting to her usual ways and thinking I was just plotting to get away from her completely, but in the end she claimed to have understood where I was coming from and promised to try and change her tone. Well, the big day arrives and everyone is at the hospital. Baby is born, we had some bonding time as a family, then invited the grandparents, both sides, up to meet her. On arrival, we introduced her and shared her name. We'd elected to keep it a secret. My wife and I come from different religious backgrounds and thus different naming traditions. Mine is to name after a departed loved one, hers is to name after a living relative. So our compromise was to name her after my grandmother, Mom's mom, who passed a while ago, and make the middle name for her mom, our daughter's grandmother. After being in the room a bit and meeting her, the question inevitably comes up of how we came up with her name. So I explained, and at first she's beaming that her granddaughter is named for her mother. Then when we get to her middle name her face changes to a look of pure anger and she says, "You did what?" I calmly explain again, only to get okay, folded arms and a pouting demeanor, clearly displaying her disapproval at this choice. This is supposed to be a happy occasion and I finally decided enough was enough and told her it was time to go. This led to resistance from my dad, her going off the rails again about how everything is against her, and my wife hysterical that another event has been messed up. So I told my dad flat out that this behavior is the reason why I won't have my kid around it, that when she's ready to behave like the grandmother we want our daughter around she can return, but for today we're through. Apparently according to any and all in my family, I'm the idiot for stepping in this way. I have always had a close relationship with my mom. After my parents divorced, I chose to live with her. I have always trusted her, and so on. Now we have never been rich, but we got by. I have always worked since I could in order to buy things like games, clothes, a phone and so forth, since these large non-essential things were too difficult for my mom or dad to afford. Basically we had no money for big non-essentials. Now because of this I quickly started saving my money. Pretty much, I would usually save up at least half of what I made in a month in order to be able to have some spending money and money to buy furniture when I moved out and such. So I turned 18 several months ago and started arranging accommodations for college next year and working full-time this year, so I wanted to see how much I had saved. Well, you can see where this is going. I looked at it and there was about $4,000 where there was supposed to be $19,000, so I freaked out and called my bank. Well, to make a long story short, after confronting my mom and dad since they were the only ones with the ability to go into my bank account, She explained she used some of my money to buy her shiny new car several months ago, so I yelled at her and said she did not use some of it. She drained 3/4 of my savings to buy a new car. She started crying, saying she wanted the car but only had $10,000 saved and the car was $25,000, so she figured it was fine. And she would pay it back in the next few years. I know she can't because it took her years to save up the $10,000. I mean, the best case scenario would be her paying back $200 a month, which would mean she would take like 6 years to pay it back. My dad lost it on her as well. He is very mild-mannered and rarely shows emotion whatsoever, but he was seething. And told her to sell the stupid car, her laptop and everything worth a penny in the house to pay it back or he would sue her. Well, this was 2 weeks ago. I have since received $200 from her and apparently the car is up for sale, but given she bought it months ago, it is likely in the best case scenario, it will fetch like 1/3 of what she bought it for. In the meantime, I have moved in with my dad, who lives 15 minutes from my mom at his behest. My dad and my mom's otherwise amicable relationship has completely collapsed. My mom has been begging me to talk to her and saying how sorry she is. Now here's what I said: until I have every penny back, I won't even consider talking to her again. And even then she has so much making up to do, I doubt I will ever forgive her. I need advice for how to go about this, as my dad wants to sue her.